This has been a great warm-up. Andy got us started with a history of abstraction, kind of caught us up to where we are at today. And then Arjun laid out some North Star goals that I think are ambitious, but very reasonable in terms of something to achieve here for this space. And today in this panel, we're going to be talking about the state of usability. And I think our panelists here are very well primed to talk about this because part of what we were talking about earlier was that distribution is king. And essentially you guys are in position because you own the consumer user relationship, right? And so you're kind of like the entrance point. I mean, for a long, long time, I've been telling people like, if I onboard them to MetaMask, right? And so the centralized
Not Coinbase Wallet?
Coinbase Wallet, depends where they are.
OK's Wallet.
So I think everyone on this panel is in a great position to talk about how the user comes in. What do they do next? How do they, after they get a wallet and they kind of get accustomed to the chain, where do they go next? How do they do that? So that's kind of what I'd like to talk about today. And kind of to start, maybe everyone can introduce themselves very briefly, but we'll get right into it. And I'd like to kick off by starting and talking about a bit, when someone comes into your ecosystem, they make an account, but what happens after that? What do they do as that next step after they have a wallet? Do they trade shitcoins? Do they go and they bridge and they go to a different chain? Or they want to interact with some other app on chain? What do they do after they make an initial account? So a quick little intro, we'll kind of go down the line, but we'll mix it up after that. So Ben, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. Name's Ben Rodriguez, Senior Protocol Specialist at Coinbase. I work across, thank you. I work across many different product verticals, just trying to advise product strategy and stuff like that internally at Coinbase. So that does include sometimes like wallet stuff, staking, whatever the case may be. So yeah.
So my name is Felix, an Asian face. I'm now in charging of the OKX wallet. And we currently launching a lot of products related to meme coins trading, as well as a smart account where we are going to launch debit cards and also some of the real life applications that hopefully can bring more use case for crypto.
Hi, I'm Christian. I lead a new group at MetaMask called Multi-Chain. And we are working on, we're launching a multi-chain dApp API that does simultaneous read and writes across multiple chains, and also integrating non-EVM chains into MetaMask in a really deep way, using the same UX that we use for Ethereum.
Awesome. We're big believers in the alt VM thesis. And so the abstraction across these different VMs and the ability to connect them all together, I think is definitely taking this industry in the right direction. So kind of, what we started off talking a little bit about is, once someone comes into your ecosystem, what do you see them do next? Do you want to what kind of actions do they want to take on chain? And then we'll talk about like how we can actually accomplish those. But when we're thinking about usability, what are some of the things that people want to do on chain as soon as they make an account? What is the first thing that you see them doing?
I mean, depends on the user, right? But like maybe a little bit of a spicier answer here. Does it matter as long as they're on chain, right? It's the ability to get on chain as quickly as possible, right? And show of hands here, how many have used or like downloaded or whatever with Coinbase Wallet over the past like 6 months? Great, yeah. Like you did the passkey one and stuff like that, the smart wallet, right? It's like 2 clicks and you already have a wallet, and you're already ready to go, whatever you want to do, and you could also fund it from your Coinbase account, right? So the ease of getting on chain is the biggest like hurdle. And then like, people can just use it however they want, right? It just depends on the user.
Okay. I'm also one of a very big fan to Coinbase Wallet. I really like the experience for on-ramping funds directly from the exchange. And the use case is very simple, where we can just browse through base chain or any other, even like different, like Solana. I think Solana is also supported on Coinbase Wallet. So I would also like to make an statistics like, so anyone are using OKX Wallet? I have heard about OKX Wallet. Okay, that's surprisingly more than I thought. I think like a year ago, I asked people to raise hand. There are only the moderator raise a hand out of like not making me embarrassed. So we are actually very dominant in the Asia side, especially the Chinese and Southeast Asia market. But we are trying to be more vocal in the Western side of crypto. I think for usability, OKX stands for multi-chain, where you can always find the latest chains being supported on OKX wallet, as well as security, where we prioritize users' fund safety on our first priority, and we have a lot of measurements to help users to have a smooth experience browsing on-chain and try to minimize the on-chain fund loss. So this is basically what OKX stands for.
And so what we're seeing at MetaMask, users are usually onboarding into a dApp or a new chain, right? And so MetaMask is usually, for any new chain or new dApp, MetaMask is one of the first supported options. And the biggest barrier at that point is getting funds into that ecosystem. There's still a huge mix of regulatory hurdles in different regions. And so, one of the things we've been doing over the past year is getting more ramp providers in various regions, so that at least in each region, users have at least one option where they can go from their bank account to have funds on chain, bridging as well. But then even then, that only gets users so far, and they run into challenges if they can't onboard within 10 minutes, right? If they can't get funds on chain, they're just blocked. They're just locked out. They can't participate, right? And when you look at something like we had the Blast launch earlier this year, right? Users can get on with the wallet, but then they need to get funds. And so some of the things that we're exploring is, okay, can we have you on ramp to another chain and then get, this stable coins across, right? Like just be able to do like okay, maybe you can get your fiat to stablecoin transaction on Linea and then get those funds over to Blast somehow. But that's really the barrier. And that's a thing that, dApps can't solve for themselves. They need the wallets to help them get to that point where they can eventually get the funds and get active in that ecosystem, whether they're chasing an airdrop or trying new dApps or participating in rewards programs or something. That's the hurdle that they need to cross. And especially for new users, you can't just offer them bridging. They don't have funds whatsoever. So, that's the thing that we're solving for.
Yeah. And the chain has been usable for quite a while, but it hasn't been easy. And so a lot of times if we were having this conversation a few years ago, it would have been like private keys. But now we've abstracted private keys away. It's 2 clicks. We have essentially removed that need to self-custody a private key because we have better tech. And so that's no longer the limitation. We've moved on to things like bridging and actually getting liquidity in there. And it seems like that's more of a regulatory hurdle than anything else. Once you have a ramp, right, and we have exchanges here, then, MetaMask works closely with exchanges too. So there are ramps available. We're solving the off-ramp into the chain part, but now it's the next step. The next usability hurdle is going to be moving that asset or that liquidity between the chains into the application that we need it to get to. There's some teams. Agoric is doing great with orchestration. We have solvers. Arjun did a great presentation talking about the solver landscape. And essentially, we want to get into that app-centric view. How can we overcome these liquidity hurdles so that we can get liquidity to the app that has the brand that is reaching users? How can we easily get the liquidity there with the least amount of complexity for the end user?
Yeah, so my thing that I've been asking is for the stablecoin providers to have that liquidity, to have sufficient liquidity on each chain so that users can easily move into stablecoins. And that's an easier route than even having to, go through ETH as the native asset or something like that. And it allows them to maintain those liquidity pools in a more stable asset, right? And so not have to also be fighting with the volatility of a native crypto asset. But I think that we're going to see a lot of improvements in this area over the next year, where you can move between chains just relying on stablecoins. And the stablecoin providers are building the technology that we need to make it so that you can go just from stablecoin assets across different chains and not having to go back and forth between other crypto assets. And I think that that's going to make things a lot easier for users.
Can I ask you a question about that, right? So like there are many different stable coins, right? And people are coming up with new models of stable coins like right now as well. So does it really, so like in terms of that, it's like kind of like almost fractured in a way in terms of like liquidity as well, because like, each stable coin is like its own little ecosystem, right? So does that really matter specifically on the specific type of stable coin that we need to like, for liquidity on? Is that like...
Yeah. I mean, and especially for dApp developers, but wallets as well. Like we're going to go for what's best for the user, and that's going to be the stable coins that have sufficient liquidity across multiple chains. And so if you're a new stablecoin offering coming into the system, you have to be willing to compete on that level. Like otherwise, it's not enough to just say that I can go and trade in and out of a stablecoin on mainnet at this point. You really have to go through the whole like metropolitan Ethereum model, right? You need to be able to provide that liquidity across all the different layer 2s that people are going to be active on.
Right. So I think for cross-chain, where liquidity fragmentation is really a problem, I think on the chain side, messaging protocol will play a very important role for that. OP Stack is launching super chain program where like Base is one of the prominent player, and Unichain is also deployed. Very soon I see that they are going to launch their mainnet. With super chain, they can do message synchronization between different chains in a second. And also for CK rollup stacks like the ACK layer provided by Polygon CDK, which XLayer is currently using, will provide a similar infrastructure for messaging transfer cross-chain. And for the application layers, I think users still want to have a smoother experience, just like what we see on Solana, where archive abstractions is actually built natively. We need to abstract away the multi-steps for you need to, every time you need to swap a token, you need to approve it. So 7702 coming up, possibly next, maybe Q1 in 2025, will possibly solve this problem in one step ahead. Just that we really want to see archive abstractions being built natively on Ethereum. Despite there are different RIP rollup proposal coming up, hopefully Ethereum will support that experience, which would so much smoothen the users to do transfer, cross-chain, or any actions on-chain.
I heard you bring up messaging protocols there, and I kind of have a question for the exchange. And you guys are building these vertically integrated stacks, right? And the playbook is kind of like you have the exchange, it reaches a bunch of users, then you have a wallet, you kind of land users there. That's their portal on chain, and then both of you got like now we have Base, right? And then there is that chain, and that's where they ultimately land. So Arjun did a great job kind of illuminating these two potential paths that we have. We have one path where users keep their assets on that chain, right? And so if they come through Coinbase, they probably keep on Base. And then if they want to access an app or, they want to buy something on chain, their money goes, gets that thing, and then brings it back to Base. And they never leave Base, right? And then there's this other path where the money actually takes the steps and maybe they end up on that other chain. And so I'm curious, kind of like, we want to prevent vendor lock-in here. We want to kind of make the incentives compatible so that all chains work together. How are you guys thinking about this at the exchange level to not just kind of lock users into a single chain, but make sure that they can have this entire flourishing on-chain experience across the entire ecosystem?
Yeah. So first things first is just getting people on chain, right? So just from the exchange, right? We have like 110 million users. You could like everything that you can do with like on Coinbase. Like if you, let's say you're on an app on Base and like maybe you're just missing some like, ETH for gas, you could pull directly from your account on the exchange using Magic Spend, right? So the first things first is just making it easier to go on chain. Jesse has mentioned multiple times that he wants to work with like, not even just within the super chain, but other ecosystems as well, like the chain clusters, right? And even like alt L1s as well, right? But I think first things first is to solve like getting people on chain And then like, then when we have like more and more people seeing the value of this, right, then we were able to work using either messaging protocols or, like credible accounts, whatever like, solutions that are out there to be able to like connect everything into almost like this like world chain based thing, right? So that's kind of like Jesse has been pretty public about that as well. So the first thing, always the first step is just get people on chain. I think that's been the biggest hurdle, right? And to say something maybe, I don't know, a little spicy, right? I would argue, because we're talking about like user experience, right? Like, and with this, like, that's like key here, right? I would argue like minus like there's many different chains, right? When you're actually on chain, a lot of the user experiences right now are actually pretty damn good, right? Like just providing liquidity on Uniswap is a couple clicks, you're good to go, right? I think one of the biggest hurdles aside from that is just like people that are new to this space in crypto, right? They're not like all of us here who are like, have been here for a couple cycles, probably are more crypto native and whatnot. We know what providing liquidity means. Someone who's like, a normie, quote unquote, I don't know, like using that, they'll come in and it's like the amount of information is overwhelming, right? I provide liquidity. Wait, what does that mean, right? What does it mean to like, do something on like a perp, but with perps, right? I think that's one of the biggest hurdles first. Like you get people on chain, but people need to understand what they're actually doing on chain. That makes sense.
They're buying meme coins. Go ahead.
So I think in OKX standpoint, we never want to like force people or trying to lock people into our own system or our own ecosystem. To be honest, X-Layer or OKT chain is not have not that much liquidity or activity so far. But what we stand for is we stand for multi-chain. We adapt to the new narratives. We adapt to trends where our users are browsing on chain. So we wouldn't say, okay, just come to X-Layer, build with us. We do that. We hope that you would build with us as well. But more importantly, we hope to build a tool that our users can use smoothly across chain. As long as there are new narrative, we hope that every time you open OKX wallet, you see that is there. Then you can just play with it. So this is what OKX stands for.
Got it. Okay, so that helps kind of build this more robust vision of the chain. Ultimately, I think you guys do have this end user relationship, and you're in position to kind of push these end users in the direction that you feel is best for them. And so as we see the landscape and the ecosystem of applications on chain evolve, how are you guys making this a more abstracted experience? We talked about private keys, wallets, all of this kind of helps to build less. I think to ask maybe this question a different way, everyone kind of knows what they want it to feel like. It should feel like you don't even know that it's blockchain underneath, right? So how are each of you kind of taking the steps to abstract the blockchain away and then ultimately put all the focus on that application that is drawing the attention from the user?
Yeah. So for everyone here, who likes the gas experience? Like when you're like using, right, you're like looking at this, you have this gas thing here, right? Like, okay, yeah, we are used to it, but like that's not something that new users, like, like 3 to 5 years from now, like the new users are just going to be less and less crypto native, like as time goes on, right? So being able to abstract that experience away, for example, using like something like Paymasters or Paymasters, right? To be able to abstract the, like, the gas away, sponsor gas through whomever needs to, like, whatever, the app or whoever's like building it and whatnot, right? So like experiences like that is something that like Coinbase like is building, or Coinbase Wallet and stuff like that, to be able to just like, you're on chain, but you don't even realize that you realize you're on chain, right? You buy an NFT, it's great. You don't have to worry about the experience. You click, buy, you're done, right? So it's like these kind of like very simple experiences that just like abstract the blockchain aspects away, and that people don't even realize they're using it.
Right. So I think there are three main areas for newbies to come in and provide a smooth experience. First is gasless, as what Ben mentioned. Paymaster will solve that hurdle. The other part is a seatless experience, where users can just come in without having to write down their private keys or seed phrase, but at the same time, not harnessing the decentralization's ability where they can self-custody wallet itself. So this way, account abstractions can also help where we can even use like passkey as a verification owner. And at the same time, we can use CK proof to help them restore their wallet in an extreme cases where they lose their device and also lose their iCloud. So these can solve two main problems. And I think the third most important problem is, maybe it is not a problem to us, it is chainless. So I think on the first topic, we have mentioned a lot about how we make cross-chain smoother and faster. I think that is also one thing that in the upcoming 1 to 2 years, what OKX and the builders in this house could think more into it. Because right now the infrastructure is not really that smooth. So it is an obvious problem where we can tackle and have a high value with it.
Yeah, and I'll mention there's a couple things that we're doing. So at the end of the day, MetaMask itself is mainly a product for crypto native users, but there's a couple areas where we're experimenting with a completely different set of use cases. So one is delegation toolkit. So actual embedded accounts where dApps can have an onboarding experience that's much simpler. And with counterfactual assets, most of the interactions don't actually require gas until you actually commit the entire set of interactions on chain, which is much cheaper and simpler for a dApp to even sponsor those interactions. But also with the delegation toolkit, you have portability, so you can eventually bring that account into MetaMask and take those assets elsewhere as well. And the other thing we're doing is MetaMask Card, which allows you to set up a crypto spend account. And it's not just a debit like top-up experience. You actually have a stablecoin balance on Linea, and you can actually set different controls around it. And ways to fund it and continuously, set spending limits and things like that. So it's actually a linked card to an on-chain account. And these are areas where we're exploring things that are less of a specifically crypto native use case and more interacting with the real world, but also simplifying a lot of the interactions. And, there are ways that I think the learnings and also benefits from those will eventually make their way back into MetaMask and benefiting crypto native users as well.
Now, up until recently, I was actually getting paid directly in USDC with Coinbase, but Coinbase has sunsetted that product. We're actually trying to make that product a little bit better for the future. So watch out in the future for that. This is something that you could see if you had Coinbase card. It says that. I'm not trying to say anything like private or anything like that. But yeah, up until recently, I was getting paid in USDC, and it was wonderful because I could just immediately do things on chain and stuff like that. So
yeah. And we're continuously seeing more and more of these cards launch. My country has still not let me participate in those, and I'm really hoping that now the regulatory framework is in place where we're not just cutting out that part of the world. And so this is going to continue to add some more adoption for just day-to-day purchases, and as we sort of use these stable coins at merchants. I imagine they're going to have to do something with those stable coins. Maybe they can opt to just convert that into fiat automatically. Probably a lot of them probably will, but maybe some of them will end up taking that in stable coins on chain and then end up doing something with that. And so I actually want to talk about, I think we have about 5 minutes left. And so I wanted to talk about account abstraction in particular, because I think that is going to have a direct impact on end users. Felix, you mentioned 7702, and frankly, I was keeping up with some of these EIPs, the account abstraction EIPs, but there was so many of them that all got put out and it was like the meme, the 14 standards. What do we need? We need a standard to standardize the standard, so we get a 15 standard. And it felt like account abstraction. Could you kind of give us what the tip of the chain is on 7702? Because that seems like that's the one that's kind of leading. And then, so that quick refresher, and then what is in general that's kind of to everyone is what is the impact this is going to have on end users?
Right. So 7702 is kind of a middle step, a middle milestone for Ethereum to be natively supporting account abstractions. So there was an attempt 437 where we try to provide account abstractions on a smart contract level. But the problem with it is the gas fee is too high. I just want to also have some hands. Anyone tries a 437 wallet before? Yeah, some of you might try the innovators.
Yeah, I remember. I think back in the day, I used like Loop Ring or whatever it is, and or something like that. And when I actually paid to make the wallet, it was like $400 to make the damn wallet.
That's during the bull cycle. So even during the bears, creating a wallet on Ethereum would cost $100 US without any airdrops. So why would a normal users have the interest to create a 437 wallet? So that is kind of a dilemma for supporting account abstraction at that way. But the thing is, we believe 437 is a success because it pushed out some applications and experiment for developers to try out some account abstractions product of Ethereum. So if we take away Ethereum mainnet, we go to layer 2s. The gas fee is quite low, and Coinbase is doing a lot of attempts into supporting the smart wallet. So I think that 437 itself is quite good. But the problem with it is the normal users, as we see and we discuss with Vitalik, is that they don't actually care much about still using their EOAs. Or naturally speaking, most of the users and the dApps are still supporting EOA as their main priorities. Maybe it is easy to fork, maybe some other issues or security issues. No matter what, we see that users are still stick to the original wallet, EOA. That is why it comes with 7702. It is, you can still use EOA, but simply speak, you can also enjoy the smart contract wallet capability. Just that one thing you wouldn't enjoy is you can't abstract away the control of your EOA. It always has the control of the smart contract wallet. But does users care? Maybe not. So this is kind of the middle milestone for Ethereum to finally bring out a capability for normal users to use smart contract abilities. And then we can push out more applications. And maybe after a few years, there becomes a very common practice of a smart contract wallet. Then we can push a proposal where supporting smart account abstractions natively on Ethereum. So this is kind of the grand scheme for that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add to that. I mean, one of the challenges with smart contract accounts in 4337 was how do you upgrade those accounts over time? How do you authorize more applications? And it became this very complicated system where you are potentially putting that smart contract account at risk if you authorize some upgrade or some extra capability that is potentially malicious or has a vulnerability, right? But what you can do with 7702, right, is essentially as the EOA, which has zero capabilities other than just managing funds and authorizing, you can authorize for a set period of time or even just within a transaction, say, okay, I'm going to authorize something very specific. So you can express an intent in a specific capability, and then within that transaction, authorize a smart contract to do something with your funds, and then remove that capability. And so it actually gives you much more granular control over how you interact with these different on-chain applications that have smart contract functionality without you having to migrate to a smart contract account. I think that's really powerful. And I think it also opens the door to having multiple EOAs as parties that are signing and authorizing various things. And it also gets us out of the lock-in of like, where is your smart contract account deployed? Because now your EOA can interact with these types of extensions on any chain, and you can do the cross-chain orchestration or abstraction in a much better way.
I just wanted to mention like the last thing on that, just to add on to it, right? Like, so I asked earlier, like, who uses Coinbase Wallet? A bunch of you raised your hand, and I specifically asked in the last 6 months where you kind of like downloaded it or recently, right? Because there technically is 2 versions of Coinbase Wallet. There's one like you could have a mobile app one, right? And stuff like that. It's like the one that everyone's been using for a while, but like we have Coinbase Smart Wallet. That was the one that's the 2-click one that I was telling people about, where it's just like it's very, very, very easy to like get on chain and whatnot. That's the smart contract wallet, right? And they were just discussing is that we're thinking about the migration of like the users that are on the old wallet, quote unquote, right, to be able to use smart contract wallet is going to be different. With the 7702 makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, excited for that new paradigm where we can start to define some of these things inside the transactions, and then cross-chain interactions, orchestration, all that becomes so much easier. Guys, I think we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.